Hello everyone, I'm Samantha Jane Smith.
And I'm Jacob Keynes, and you are listening to the Classical Queer Podcast.
So hello everyone and welcome to the Classical Queer Podcast. Today I'm very excited to have with us the opera company Man Must Sing from here in Sweden. Now they put on newly written norm creative, i.e. less stereotypical and inclusive productions here in Sweden. Before we go any further, there'll be some people say, oh, it's in Swedish. But let me just say that if you watch the videos and listen to the music, you will get a great sense of what is happening. I do encourage you to take a listen. So let me welcome the two members that I've got today. That's Amanda Fludin and Carl Peter Eriksson. Hey.
Thank you. Hey.
Thank you so much.
It's nice to have you here. So normally we start by getting you to tell us about yourself. It can be whatever you want and a little bit about Man Must Sing.
Yes. Thank you for inviting us. We are really honored to be here in this podcast. We are, as you said, a norm creative opera company. My name is Amanda. This is Carl Peter. And we also have Nina. She's not here today. We formed this opera company some years ago. And we decided that we wanted to do opera, but in a special way that is important to us. And that is that we sing in Swedish because we don't want any layers between us and the audience. So it's really important to do it in Swedish for us. And we want to investigate and dig deep into themes and things that happens in society today, things that people are discussing, people that is, it can be controversial and it can be, but it has to be really important for everyone who lives on earth today. And then we need to commission the music. We don't think we can do this with old music, but we need to commission new operas to make opera develop in a way. And then we also do it in a chamber kind of form. We are not like a big chorus and a big orchestra. We are 3 singers on stage and normally 2 or 3 instrumentalists. And we think that, we have done some things about the climate, migration, and things like that. But the LGBT topics are important to us. And our last opera was for kids. And our the other one we did was also in this area, LGBT. So we think that is a very important subject for us. And now I don't know if I said it all. Or if I missed something.
No, I think you concluded it quite well. I'm Carl Peter then, 1/3 of this opera company. And we could say we commissioned now 6 operas, haven't we? Yeah, we're now working with our 5th one and our 6th one, but that comes later. It's both are coming next year. So right now we are working with the libretto for our 5th one. And just working with, for us, it's important to, the story and the lyrics, the text is very important for us. So we work deeply with that and the characters for at least 2 weeks every time. Full time working with the director, just digging deep into the libretto. That is also commissioned by us. So it's original stories always, original music written for us. So yeah, so we've been doing this we've been singing together as a group for over 10 years, but we've had this company for now since, when is it? 2014?
Yes.
14 something.
Our first world premiere was in 2016.
Yeah.
So that was a big landmark for us.
So how did you just go, hey, we need to do this? What was why did you decide to do it? Because it's a big step, right?
It is. Well, we started out actually as a vocal trio, We had thoughts of starting a vocal quartet kind of standard, but but we ended up being a trio. And our concerts that we did usually classical music, and we included poems actually, and we built contemporary poems. Just to reflect on the music that we sang. And those concerts became more and more performances in a way. We started, it moved closer to opera. We felt, and we thought, why not do an opera properly? So we actually asked around. People who knows this and knows repertoire and so on. We wanted this opera with three characters, three main characters.
And only three characters, yes.
And only three characters, and with our voices, so kind of baritone, a mezzo, and soprano, and a theme that could touch today's audience without filters. So not too many angels or whatnot, animals or spirits, kind of real persons, or at least themes that really touch you nowadays. And we wanted to do it in this chamber music format in a way. So we looked for that opera and couldn't find it.
It was difficult one, I think. Yeah.
It wasn't there. So then we just we thought, no, I think we have to commission an opera.
But it's true, as you say, it was a big step, because we didn't try before that. We didn't try to, for example, fundraise money, because we are also the producers of the company, so we need to fundraise everything from the beginning. It will cost a lot of money actually to commission music and a libretto, and we have decided to only work with the highest quality people, so to say. We want to have the composer and the librettist and the director and the set designer and the lighting designer and makeup designer. Everyone should be really top notch.
Right.
And also the instrumentalists. And that is really important to us, because we don't want it to be like, okay, we have this big opera houses and they can do everything with all their money, etc. And here we are, and we are doing something mediocre. No, we don't want that. We want to be on the highest musical and artistic level. So then it takes a lot of work to fundraise and to produce the whole thing. But as we have experienced it, now we have world premiered 4 operas. We have experienced that it gives a lot, even if we do a lot of work for free, you can say, because we need to produce it, we need to have a lot of meetings, and we actually need to pay salaries to people and do everything practical around. But it's so important to us to do this, so it's worth it. And it gives so much to you back to put all this effort, because we really believe in this. And we have got a lot of feedback from, for example, in reviews in the newspapers and also from the audience. And that is also very rewarding, so to say, because we have put so much hard work in this. And for example, to hear something from someone in the audience when we did an opera about the LGBT community, and someone who said, like, I have never seen myself on stage before. This is the first time I feel represented. It makes everything worth it.
Yeah. I think this is something we've actually touched a few times on the podcast before with performers. It's that being able to touch people and reflect them on the stage. Sort of allows them to be, if you like, it allows them to see themselves and then to go on and express themselves within the environment they're in, and that really is that's what art is, isn't it? I mean, I kind of think that's the definition in a way. Yeah. So when you I think you're very brave, by the way, to do these four things completely yourself with three people. But when you do this, I mean, what's your process? I mean, you obviously have an idea, but then how do you go about getting it over to the librettist and the musicians and the musical, the composers, etc.? What's your kind of process for this?
I'd say it's different every time in a way. How it started from the beginning, we sat down and actually when we understood we had to commission an opera, we had to find some themes or something. What touches us and what do we want to discuss with the audience? That's kind of how we look at it. Something to discuss or bring up. And we came up with loads of themes that we think is important today and that we wanted to discuss. And then we found a composer who actually I was working with him at the moment and thought he was fantastic. So we actually went to him and said, "Do you want to write an opera for us?" And he said, "Yes, yes, I do. What about?" And we said, "We've got these themes. Do you feel anything for anything here in particular?" And he just looked at one specific spot there and said, "I think this says something to me." And he actually was working then with a librettist with another opera. So he asked, "Can I ask her? Can I ask her?" Yes, please do. So and she just got hooked on it, and they worked together doing this. So that was kind of how that was. But otherwise, we've also presented the themes or our thoughts to the librettist at first, and the composer takes over. But it's always always want both the librettist and the composer and everybody to be free and to do what touches them and what they want to tell. And it has always been good. And it's, I mean, we have such a broad spectra of things we want to bring up. So it's always been in this area. So yeah, it's different every time. And I think that's nice. I think we like that too. We don't have that kind of strict form. We have to go from this to that and through that person. It's a given and taken.
Yes, and it's a collaboration also with the director, because we have had the same stage director every time, and she works normally at the theater. She didn't do any opera, I think.
No, it was the first opera with us.
And we thought that she has an acting method that attracted us in some way, and we have used her in every production because we think that it has become a special, the way we are presenting it on stage. It's supposed to be 100% honest from ourselves. And we need to, as Carl-Peter said, we really need to dig deep into the text and the characters and everything. It's supposed to be 100% serious. And I think working with her has led us to a certain way of doing opera, and she has taken with her the set designer and light designer and makeup designer. So it has been a little team that she has created around it.
Oh, right.
So and that is fantastic. Now when we are looking back, it can be a little bit, because we are always working like and now when you are asking us, I'm like looking back and I think, wow, we have actually achieved this, because normally we are just looking forward all the time.
It's kind of interesting because when I started taking a look at your videos, what I noticed about them was this continuity, not only in the set design, but in the characters you play. I mean, it's not. I don't mean it's the same character, but you get this kind of character in it, which is kind of the same sort of expression in each of the operas you do. I guess the question is, was that a conscious choice, or was that kind of it just came naturally as you went from one to the opera? It sounded like a bit of both.
Yes, I think it has a lot. It has to do with this method, acting method, because when we are reading the libretto at first, we don't even have the music. We worked last week with the libretto. The music is not yet written. So we are not in this first stage. We are not singers. We are just actors or people and persons. And at first we read the text extremely slowly. It's supposed to be one word each breath.
Mm-hmm.
And after that we discuss every scene, and the director would like us to associate, and we are just discussing what do we feel when we read these words. And it takes a lot of time, but then in the second stage of this method, we need to find a physical expression that will, it has to do with something that will never be seen on stage. It's only inside the character. So it can be really irrational, and it can be just anything. And we are building up the characters from that. And it can sound a little bit strange, and it is a little bit strange because we cannot use our eyes, and we cannot watch each other. So everyone is working for themselves, but the director is looking at this, and from that, then we will come to stage 3 when we are really rehearsing the opera. But I think this method, it will affect, I think, what you see that you described. I think it has a lot to do with that acting method. I don't know.
Actually, I think that and because we are who we are. I mean, I think you can always see that it's me playing that character in a way. I think we use, of course, our strengths, but we also want to do things that are outside our comfort zones. That's our goal, at least as artists, to try to do that. And it might also be because it's always supposed to be three main characters. I mean, in a way, we've got a form, or because you rarely see that. It's some supportive roles, at least something, but now it's always three main characters. I think it paints a kind of the same picture in a way every time, in that way, but in very different ways. It was a really interesting question.
You're kind of right, because when you watch them, you kind of feel an affinity for three people, in a sense, because you've kind of, it's kind of the same three people. I know it sounds a bit weird, but on the other hand, the characters you portray are different and have got depth to them. So it's kind of like there is a kind of an acknowledgement that you know them, but they're different people anyway. So it kind of does make, if you watch them all in a row, if you know what I mean, if you watch all the bits in a row, then you do sort of feel, oh, this is kind of, I know them, but I don't, sort of thing. And it's like you've got the same three family doing the same thing. It's kind of an interesting dynamic. And I think that was what makes it really interesting from my perspective as well.
Yes.
Wonderful.
I mean, trying to do something. I mean, I must admit, trying to do something complicated and get over complex issues with only three people, I think in itself is a remarkable thing, because I don't think I've ever seen, you do see monologues from people and on plays and this kind of thing. And you're obviously seeing single singers, but an opera, typically, you'll have, okay, you may have two main characters and then three supporting characters, and then there's a chorus, and then there's this and that. And by the time you finish, you've got 65 people on stage. And I kind of think this is really an interesting way to do it. I think it's kind of fascinating.
Yes, and it's actually three people. It is in one sense it's few people, but in another sense you have the first person with their monologues or arias, the second and the third. Then you have the meeting between A and B, the meeting between B and C, A and C, and then you have the trio. So it's quite a lot of different things still. And then you add the music or the instruments. We have had 3 instruments in most of our productions. You can do so many different combinations. Now I'm thinking of one of our operas. We had this clarinet and bass clarinet. We had percussion, and we had a cello. And think of all the different combinations you can make, like one voice and one instrument. And yeah, I don't need to explain it, but it becomes lots of different timbres, lot of different sounds.
Sounds good. Well, I think we ought to talk about one of the pieces that we're going to listen to. So we're going to listen to something from your opera, Jag vet inte vem jag och jag älskar dig. That's my best Swedish, which roughly translates is I don't know who am I and I love it. And the amazing thing about this, it's an opera on gender fluidity for elementary school children. Right.
Yes.
So first of all, explain this for the audience.
Well, we had done 3 operas for grown-ups, and we were really decisive that we wanted to do something for children, and we need to do it on exactly the same artistic level as for grown-ups. We want it to be definitely the same high quality. And we thought of themes and everything, and we read some articles about culture for children. There are actually quite a lot of stories, books, theater plays and everything about rainbow families, if you put it that way. That is a child that has, for example, homosexual parents or something like that. But there are not so many stories for kids about kids and their own identity. So we just thought that we really would like to do something about that, because everyone, it doesn't matter what age you are, you have thoughts about yourself, who am I, etc. And we found the perfect librettist for this, Christian Hallberg, and he immediately wrote a fantastic story about a boy, Edvin, and his 2 parents. And I think the title says a lot about it, because I don't know who I am, and I love it, being able to embrace that you don't know exactly who you are. Because if you think about it in another way, nobody knows who they are. And during your life, you are not the same person from you were born to when you die. It is changeable. It can be your sexuality, but it doesn't have to be that. Only who you are. You are different persons in different contexts and everything. So the opera is a lot about that, and how his parents reacts when he says that he wants a completely different breakfast than he always eats, for example. What? But you always eat this. And so it has lots to do with how does the world, the parents, how do they react? But for Edvin, it's nothing special. And he wants another name, and the parents, they really try to follow his thoughts and try to be adaptive and what does he mean? And in the end, he just says that, no, but now I want my normal breakfast again. So the story is a lot about, as I said, you don't have to know who you are, but you can still like it and love it.
Well, let's take a listen to the piece and then we'll talk more about it.
Har du aldrig varit ganska egen? Har mött din egen som du aldrig kan förstå. En som kan gå till skolan klädd i klänning och ändå heta Edvin Andersson. Jag vet inte vem jag är och jag älskar dig.
Vet inte vem jag är och jag
So how was this being received? First of all, by the children themselves. How did they take this?
First of all, just singing for children between 6 years up to 9 years is amazing, and just watching them, because we are not on the big arenas. We've had at most about 150 in the audience, maybe. That's quite a lot for us, actually. We usually perform for much less than that. But just seeing them being so still and going into the drama. Children in that age, they usually want to express themselves vocally and move around. They are very playful, but they are so in the drama and the story and everything. And afterwards, when they come to us, and we've had children that say, oh yeah, I know exactly. I don't know who I am, and I actually like that. And it's how they actually get the story and they ask themselves questions and ask us questions and so on. They are really, and I mean, in the form of opera. I mean, mostly it's the first time they've been to an opera ever. Some children have been to the opera before, or at least at the opera watching something. Yes. But the reaction is, I think it's kind of special with us too, because they come so close to us compared to being at an opera house when you've got. The distance is usually it is a distance, really, but here on the venues we are really close. So I mean, our voices can get quite strong too, or loud, and that they comment on that. Oh, it was so loud but so good.
Yes. They have so many questions. How can you sing in that way? How can you play that? They have a lot of reactions. Just experiencing live music is quite a big thing. Most kids have their iPads and things, and I mean, that is a big experience. And then it's, as you said, the theme. They have said a lot of. We have tried to write down all the comments, because we have got so many fantastic feedbacks, and it's.
Yeah, I mean, not only are you introducing them to opera, which is brilliant, because I'm a big opera fan, but it's great at all levels. But getting kids involved early, I think, is brilliant. But as you said, you're touching a topic which, as somebody who is clearly gender fluid and has changed gender, I mean, it is an important thing for trans children and gender fluid children to actually see somebody going through that process. And I think, I mean, where were you when I was a child? I think that was. I mean, it's kind of shows an advancement, I think, which is important for the community, that you're able to do this and show children. But did you find any pushback from parents or and that kind of work? Because I suspect they're worse than the kids, I think. In this
not parents, but we got some on the internet. We got some really bad. What can we call it? On Facebook, for example, on Twitter, and it is always people who didn't see the show.
Of course.
And we think that it is the word queer that will make them upset. So we have been, they call us everything from, we are pedophiles, we are indoctrinating kids, and it has been quite tough and hard for us, because it's quite, I mean, you can discuss things, you can have different opinions, but it's not so nice being like hated on the internet. I find it quite depressing, and but then again, we try to turn it into a positive thing, like okay, but if they get so upset, then it must be an important subject, then we need to do this. We actually lost one of the in the autumn when we did this opera. Actually, the police was there because it was so much threats, so to say. But of course, no one showed up because they only sit behind their computers. Of course. But it was in a library, a public library, lots of families, everyone was really happy. So it's really bizarre that there is a policeman watching it. But yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, it is kind of standard practice if you're trans or if you're gender fluid to suffer from lots of abuse threats of, like you say, paedophilia, grooming, you should hang yourself.
I love grooming.
So yeah, it is a common thing. And we're seeing that at the moment, with this thing about drag shows as well. That's now
exactly.
in the same way. So I think it's brilliant that you can do, and actually the interesting thing is that almost everybody who goes to these events absolutely loves them. And and that's the thing about it. It's because you say it's the keyboard warriors that love to complain about these things. So I think it's brilliant. I think it's fantastic you're doing this. And I must say, one of the things that when I watched this was the great, I call it comedic, but it's not comedic, but the great acting that you did to actually get over what's going on. I mean, your facial expressions and the whole set and everything is kind of fantastic. And I really think it's. I mean, I loved watching it. What bits I've seen of it, and I can imagine the kids would love it even more because it is so fantastic, and I think it's brilliant. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
We talked a little bit there about sort of. The reactions of people, and you've done. We'll talk about another one of your operas soon, but you've done some on environmental issues and on also in immigration.
Yeah.
And I kind of think those are also issues where you might get some kickback and feedback from people. Probably not as much as LGBT community, but did you find there was any? Have you found similar things there?
Not as I can remember.
No, I can't remember that either.
No, it wasn't. It was only in this children's opera. I think it's much more. It is something special when you present something for kids. Mm-hmm. It's the baddest thing you can do, according to these people. We didn't get anything else, I think. Maybe something from Scenen from ett polyamoröst äktenskap. Some because the polyamory,
We'll talk about that one in a minute.
But otherwise, I don't think about the climate and so on. No, nothing in migration. No.
Yeah.
But I mean, it can be.
I mean, you're really hitting the top sort of 3 or 4 topics here. I mean, of kind of the things people get very exercised about, very excited about, immigration and these kinds of things, particularly, with the way things are at the moment, you're seeing these things float to the top. And I think your shows is something becoming even more timely with immigration now becoming more of an issue, I guess, here in Sweden as well as around the world. So
definitely, yes.
Yeah. We're talking about that. Oh, actually, the old operas, they're just a few years old, but they are still. We could do them again, or maybe they are even more we could do it could get any
Yes.
more reactions nowadays. Actually, both of them, our first operas. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I think with those, you were probably, ahead of the big reaction where with the rainbow stuff, you hit it perfectly, the queer shows and that kind of thing. And the next one we're going to talk about, which is also one which people get very upset about, is Scener et polyamorous äktenskap.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
Scenes from a polyamorous marriage.
Yeah.
So how did this one come about? This is kind of a different step, and so why did this one interest you?
Well, how it started out. I mean, the title is Ingmar Bergman. That is scenes from a marriage. It has something to do with that. But in that case, there are two characters or two people living together, and their marriage. In this opera, we are three people living together, all married with children. And how that came up was actually, we presented, again, themes and so on for a librettist. And he actually works as a psychologist.
Oh, okay.
Yes, also, he's a librettist. He and works as a psychologist and have been working with what has been working with
gender transitions,
yes,
and reproduction.
Yes.
So he has met a lot of people, and he said that he used experiences from his sessions. So everything that he wrote in this opera, it is in some way he has met those people, but of course he has made it into a story, so to say. But it was quite interesting because he told us that he has been thinking about these subjects a lot as a psychologist. And I will try to explain it. I think it's quite difficult, but he said that he experienced that the LGBT community can have very strict standards or norms or rules that can be as strict or even stricter than in the standard society. So he wanted to investigate that, the norm pressure that can be in a subculture. And he said that if you are really into the LGBT community, then you might, he experienced that you might have the heterosexual man is like the worst enemy. And suddenly, if you would like to do a gender transition, suddenly you can come out on the other side, and you are an heterosexual man. And that how can you suddenly be that person that was the enemy? He wanted to. I don't know if I explain it in a good way, but it gets very black and white when I say it in English. But he wanted to investigate that. So the opera starts with one of the characters actually coming out of the closet as heterosexual, monogamous, and cisgender. And that is so very shocking.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, is there anyone? Oh no!
Exactly. And then it goes on about that. How can you still be? So it's a lot about identity. How can you still be that person or that person? And it's very interesting libretto.
Yeah, so
fascinating.
Yeah, so I mean, what it's mostly about is kind of the norm pressure. Can you say that, or the norms? Both in the world as we see it, the kind of everyday world, and also in the LGBTQ community and so on, and also this family of three, how they actually navigate under the pressure of both those worlds, because they are in a way they are kind of the what do you say in English? The Smiths, or the kind of just a regular family. With it's just that because they've got regular works, they've got children, they live in a house, Everything is kind of normal, quotation marks. But then they are three, and it's at least one cisgender woman and one cisgender male, and they are living together. Three that's outside the norm, but and still, if you are, I mean, if as my character, he feels, I mean, he has to identify probably as either a twink or a bear or whatnot. There, yeah. What are you really? This is not in the opera, but there are so many rules there too in that community, and I'm a part of it personally, but I know about it privately too. But yeah, that was that.
Yeah.
Yes, and also,
Sorry, go on. No, go on, please.
I just wanted to say that, speaking about this, I just come to think about that. It is that libretto. It's very, like, you can cry in some parts, but it's also very much humor. You can really laugh a lot, and that is also one of our things, that you should be able to laugh. It's like, it's so bizarre and absurd, but still it is very serious in the same time, and that is important for us.
Är klockan så smiter vi er in I bastun där ingen ser.
Jag kände mig så modig, så fri. Vi kämpar för detsamma, för allas lika rätt. För att få vara den en är, helt oavsett om någon är hungrig. Om ni kan polyamory kämpar vi för jämlikhet och ökad tolerans. Minns ni när vi bildade vårt hem med Katarina och Peter? Då var vi faktiskt 5. På ett sätt nästan enklare just för att vi var flera. För att det var lite olika sorters relationer. Vi kunde inte vara allting för varann. Det fick vi acceptera. Istället var vi vänner och partners i olika konstellationer.
When I was watching a bit of this on the television and I put it on the TV to watch, my wife came by and she said, "What's that?" And I explained a little bit and she went, "Oh gosh, that must be complicated." I said, "Yes, it's a family crisis, except much more complicated." Family crises are both, sad and funny. They can be both things.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like you've taken that and it's kind of in a way desperately normal. I know that sounds wrong, but it's kind of normal, but it's 3 people. So it's kind of strange.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Did you, I mean, it's kind of interesting you said about these pressures on the community, both inside and out, the LGBT community. Because, it has always surprised me how, and I guess trans people maybe are slightly different because most trans people I know are quite, I want to use the word non-normal. I don't use the word normal. I mean, normal's a difficult word, but not non-common. I mean, generally they tend to be much more fluid in their approach to things. And it's always struck me that a large proportion of the LGBT community, and here I will upset some people, is kind of normal. And that may be good and bad. I don't think it's good or bad. It just is. It's normal families. And I think that's kind of important to say, there's normal families everywhere. It's whatever normal means. I mean, and that's...
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So did you get, so we talked about feedback on the other one. What about feedback on this one? Did you get people coming up to you and going, "Wow, this sounds a great idea," or "Oh my gosh, this is, this is kind of so complicated," or what came out of it?
What I remember the most is people, as I said before, saying that, like, this is the first time I see myself represented on stage. For example, we have a big scene about reproduction, and I remember one person saying, like, "It was exactly like that for me." And a lot of comments about that. being represented on stage, and that was I feel that very strong, and I remember it it's very touching when someone can feel that way. But it was also kind of, in one way, it was kind of, we were discussing a lot, like, if we are portraying these people on stage, can we upset people from the LGBT community? Are we doing some kind of, I don't know, parody, like a parody? Are we doing something like making them seem silly or something like that? Because we want to take this really serious. So it was nervous in one way, trying to portray. My character, it was something about, I didn't do the gender transition, but I had tried to. I went there in some way, and I don't have that experience myself, so it's very important, of course, for us not to insult someone. But we didn't get any reactions, as I remember it.
No, not at all.
No
actually.
negative things.
I think in a case like that, that's kind of an interesting one, because a lot of people don't undergo gender transition. Even if they want to, they get blocked in that way. Whatever. I tried to transition when I was 18. I eventually ended up transitioning when I was 60. It took me 42 years to transition, and because of various things got in the way. And you rarely see that on stage. People are either happily transitioned, it's fine, or it's all hell and everyone gets killed or something. It's kind of never this bit in between. So I think that's an important thing to show people, that happens to people. They just, they don't want to be who they are, but they don't know, or they can't find out how to transition, and that kind of goes back to the I don't know who I am, but I love it. So I think that's kind of an important thing to show, and I think people would want to see that, even if one's experience is different to what you portrayed. It still shows that it identifies a group of people who've probably not been shown on stage very much, I think.
In this case, Amanda's character, she really regrets, in a way, starting this transition, and so she becomes a regretter, ångrare. I don't know if there's an English word for that, but it's really an expression in Swedish. Maybe you know about it. If you suddenly feel that no, I was wrong. I was born in the gender that I was, or whatever it is, and it's really in some parts of the community, it's really shameful and a bad thing to regret it. In some parts, that was right. One of the parts. That we thought that, how are people going to react to this? Because then she doesn't go through with the transition.
That's kind of an interesting as well. Detransitioners, I guess in English it would be, or somebody who's never gone that far.
Yes,
they are still part of the community. It's. I find it quite shameful if people actually don't think they should. If people choose not to transition because it's not who they are, that's fine. I don't think anybody should deny that to them. I think the only thing that most trans people are aware of is that there are a lot of detransitioners using that for excuses to hit the trans community. So it's kind of like that's the problem. But I think it's from my personal, I'm speaking from my personal experience here. I think most people are quite. I think it's a good thing to get that experience out there, because you do change your feeling. When I transitioned, I thought I was going to be. I've gone through from thinking I was gay, through thinking I was gender fluid, all the way now to being a trans woman. So, that's changed over the years. You change as you mature and things change. So I kind of think it's vital you can change who you are. So there we go. That's the end of my spiel. So
yeah.
So great. So okay. So you've got two you've had 2 previous ones about immigration, the environment. You've got these 2 we've talked about, and you've got 2 more in progress. So tell us about a little bit about those.
Oh, yeah.
If you can, if it's not secret. If it's not secret.
No, it's not secret, but we've just started working with now the upcoming that is premiering in 1 year. But it's called, at least for the moment, no, it's going to be called The System in English then, Systemet. If you live in Sweden, you also know that about Systembolaget.
Oh yes,
that is the liquor store, the monopoly liquor store here, that you can call Systemet, the same word as the system. So it's kind of a word play.
It's a play on that for people, yes.
Yes. So the 3 characters again, two characters who actually are sitting on the bench outside this store, waiting for it to open. They are outside the system, you can say. They lost their work and they're homeless and so on. And in comes this young and eager girl who looks for just an extra job to finance her studies, and it shows them their CV, their curriculum vitae, and it talks a lot about what she knows about the world and life and so on. So it's a story about 3 characters. But what can I say more about that?
It is a subculture in a way, because they are living on the street, and they have created their own little society in one way. And the librettist, she wanted to speak. I mean, these people, they are not shown on stage so much. And also here it is important to take it really serious and not make some parody and just make them look silly, but really take them 100% serious. And that is what we started to do last week, just to dig into these characters. What did they do before? Why did they get here? And it's a very touching story.
Yes.
And it's funny, and it's it has a lot to tell us.
Yeah. And our librettist, Naima Shaboon, who also wrote the libretto for our first opera, by the way, but she wanted to explore the different languages in a way that you can find among those people outside the system, the outcasts or the homeless and so on. You can, when you walk past them or end up sitting beside them, you can hear really philosophical stuff, or really, it sounds really educated, and sometimes it's just you can't understand a word. So she wanted actually to explore the languages. So it's quite clear those 3 characters have how they develop their languages. We got this young girl who actually, she speaks with words she has learned to use. Anyway, these are the words I should use. Yes. I might not know what they mean, but it's good words.
Yes.
And my character, he lives through the worlds of literature in a way. He reads a lot and it uses he quotes a lot of books all the time. And Amanda's character doesn't use so many words, and that's the thing. It's dense.
Right.
It's a dense language, but not too many words, and so on.
It feels very non-operatic to make these characters go to the opera stage. I think it will be a fantastic clash. As you say, my character doesn't say a lot, so how will we make this on stage? It will be very interesting.
Yeah, and how to make music out of that. Yeah. Our composer, Paula of Malmborg Vard, she wants to also, because the instrumentalists in this opera are going to be synth player or synthesizer,
Yeah.
synthesizer player, saxophone player, and a cello.
Oh, right.
So and she wanted to try to she wanted musicians who could play both classical music and jazz. So so we'll see what will happen there, and with elements of improvisation and so on. So it's going to be
That sounds interesting. Yeah, that sounds like that's going to be quite challenging. And also, as you said, I think seeing these people on stage, it's a group of a community we are pushed aside by everyone.
Yeah.
And politicians, and putting them in front of people on the stage, I think is a really excellent idea. So that's what. So so you're just starting that. So that's what end of the year next year sometime.
It's actually the beginning of next year, so 2024.
Okay, sounds good.
Yes.
And your other one that you're starting briefly?
Yes, it is an opera for children again, but older ones from 10 to 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
We don't know so much about it, but it has to do with cancel culture. Can you say that?
Yes.
How can you dare to be there? And the librettists want to examine this theme in a way. It could be quite controversial, actually.
I think so. Yes.
Yes. But he is an expert. I mean, it's the same librettist who wrote Jag vet inte vem jag är, jag älskar det. He is an expert on making these things. I mean, if we get some reactions again, I will get it as a like, okay, then it is important to take this to the stage. But I don't know how we will manage, but he will.
Yeah.
That is the only thing we know. We know the composer and the librettist, but it's really in the beginning.
It'll be interesting to see what comes out of that.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing that one. That one could be quite controversial as well. So it's kind of good you're hitting these head on. So
Yes, it's important to not only be in the comfort zone, as you said, just to try something that can be a little bit dangerous, but it's exciting.
Sounds good. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of work on your plate, so that's excellent.
Yeah.
I do thank you again for coming onto the podcast. So it's been really fantastic. The only thing I have a complaint about is that you need to bring your shows up to the north of Sweden sometime.
We want to.
Yeah, bring them up here to the wilds of northern Sweden so we can get some cultural stuff up here. That would be fantastic. But next time I'm down your way, I'll try and take in a show. Certainly, that would be fantastic.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting us.
Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll hear from you again in the near future.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
So that's all for this episode. You've been listening to the Classical Queer Podcast, and Jake and I look forward to being with you next month. The incidental music is courtesy of Jared Miller, and the show was produced by Samantha Jane.